The morning light is soft on my windowsill, catching the dust motes dancing in the air. My hands, they know the feel of this African violet's leaves better than they know most things now. They're slow but steady. I pinch off a browning edge, a tiny act of care for something that's managed to survive in this same spot for years. It's a quiet life, this plant's. It doesn't ask for much, just a little water, a little sun. It never has to prove it deserves its place on this sill. I suppose we all find our own ways to hold on, to keep our roots in the soil, even when the air gets thin. We learn what to do to get by. There are things you swallow your whole life. Small things you tell yourself. A word, a look, a silence where a name should have been. You pack them down deep inside, one by one, because making a fuss seems like a bigger risk than the hurt itself. You learn to carry the weight without showing the strain. It becomes a part of your posture, the way you hold your shoulders, the way you meet another person's gaze, or the way you don't. Everyone thinks you're strong for enduring it all so quietly. But I've had 80 years to think about it, and I have to ask, was that strength? Or was it just a slow disappearance? It's a question that sits with you, it settles in your bones, and you carry it around for decades. My name is Harold Eugene Mitchell. I'm 80 years old, and I've had more than my share of time to turn that question over in my mind. You learn early on that your name isn't always yours to keep. Sometimes it gets taken, replaced by something easier for someone else to say, or by nothing at all. You become a shadow, a function, a pair of hands, and you let it happen because survival feels more important than a sound. But I wonder now about the cost of that trade, the slow, quiet price you pay for being agreeable. I remember the smell of that furniture store more than anything. A mix of lemon oil, fresh sawdust from the workshop out back, and the faint, clean scent of the expensive rugs on the floor. I was in my late 40s, and I knew every piece of wood in that showroom like it was an old friend. There was this one mahogany dining table, a real masterpiece, with a grain that looked like flowing water. I'd polished it myself that morning. A well-dressed couple was admiring it, running their hands over the surface. The new manager, a young man named Peterson, barely old enough to be my son, hovered nearby, all small smiles and nervous energy, wanting to make a good impression. The couple was sharp. They weren't just looking at the price tag. They understood quality. The husband leaned in and asked Mr. Peterson something specific about the ribbon figure in the grain. A technical question about how the wood was quarter sawn. I saw the flash of panic in the young man's eyes. He didn't have a clue. He glanced around, and his eyes landed on me standing by the roll-top desks. He didn't look at me. Not really. He gestured vaguely in my direction with a flick of his wrist and said to the couple, his voice full of false confidence, "Let me get the big guy to help you with that. He's been here forever." In that moment, the whole showroom seemed to go silent in my head. The big guy. Not Harold, not Mr. Mitchell, not our wood specialist. A nickname based on my size. A description you'd give a piece of furniture. It felt hot and sharp. A flash of shame that rose from my stomach to my throat. I was suddenly invisible. My 20-plus years of expertise erased and replaced by a simple, dismissive label. He's been here forever. Like the table itself, a fixture without a name, without a story of its own. I felt an anger so pure it was almost white hot, but my face didn't move. My hands, resting on a cherry wood desk, didn't even clench. Years of practice took over. I took a slow, silent breath and pushed the heat back down, packing it away with all the other things I'd learned to carry. I put a gentle, professional smile on my face, the one that said I was here to help, that nothing was wrong. I walked over, my steps even and unhurried. I greeted the couple warmly, ignoring the manager completely. I leaned over the table and began to explain the beauty of the mahogany, the way the light caught the grain because of the precise angle of the cut. My voice was calm and steady, full of the passion I genuinely felt for the work. A perfect mask for the storm raging inside me. The couple bought the table. Mr. Peterson clapped me on the shoulder afterward, a gesture of thanks that felt more like an insult. I just nodded. But those words, the big guy, they came home with me that night. They sat with me at my own dinner table. They were small, careless words, not meant to be cruel, but they had a weight to them. They settled deep inside me, a cold, heavy little piece of metal in my gut. It was a reminder that no matter how much I knew, no matter how skilled I was, my identity could be stripped away in an instant, leaving behind only a shape, a function, a nameless presence in a room where I thought I belonged. Back then, driving home, the anger was a living thing in the car with me. It wanted me to hit the steering wheel, to yell into the quiet of the evening. But another part of me, a much older, more practiced part, just kept saying, "Let it go, Harold. It's not worth it." You see, you learn to do that math in your head real quick. The cost of speaking up versus the cost of staying quiet. A young manager's careless word against a steady job, against the peace of my family. The choice felt obvious, necessary. I told myself it was a sign of my own strength to not let his foolishness get to me. I was being the bigger man, not just in size. Today, sitting here, I can see both sides of it so clearly. I feel for that man in the car, my younger self, so determined to protect what he had built. He did what he thought was right, what decades of experience had taught him was safest. But there's another feeling too, a deep, aching frustration with him. I want to ask him why he let them take his name so easily, why he agreed to be a shadow in his own life. That's the part that's hard to reconcile. The anger I felt then was at Mr. Peterson. The anger I feel now, some of it is for myself. It wasn't just his word. It was my silence that followed. For years I believed that my silence was a fortress. I thought I was keeping my dignity safe inside, untouched by the smallness of the world. But a fortress can also be a prison. By not letting the anger out, I kept it in, and it lived with me. It became a part of the foundation. I survived that day, and many other days like it. But survival isn't the same as victory. You don't get a prize for carrying the heaviest load without complaining. You just get stronger arms and a tired back. And you start to wonder if all that strength was just an illusion, a costume you wore to hide the fact that you were slowly being worn down. My son, David, he's an architect, a good one. Designs buildings that look like they belong to the sky, solid and full of light. I've always been proud of the man he became, the way he carries himself with a quiet confidence I never quite mastered. But I remember a phone call a few years back. His voice on the other end was tight, stretched thin like a wire about to snap. He'd just come from a big client meeting, one he'd been preparing for weeks. He didn't sound defeated, not exactly. He sounded hollowed out. It's a sound a father recognizes. It's the sound of a small, sharp tool chipping away at something you've spent a lifetime building. He told me the presentation went perfectly. The clients loved his designs. But afterward, a senior partner at his firm, a man he respected, clapped him on the back in front of everyone and said, "David's one of the most articulate guys we've got." I heard those words through the phone, and my own past rose up to meet them. It wasn't the same insult as the big guy, but it was from the same family. It wasn't a compliment. It was a statement of surprise, a little trophy held up for display. "See? This one speaks so well." It was a way of marking him as different, an exception to some unspoken rule they all carried in their heads. "Dad," he said, and his voice finally cracked a little. I felt like I was 10 feet tall and 1 inch wide. I understood that feeling in my bones. It's the sensation of being turned into a spectacle. All your hard work and knowledge suddenly invisible behind this one surprising trait. My name was taken and replaced with my size. His was kept, but it was followed by an asterisk, a footnote that said he wasn't what they expected. The world had changed between my time and his, but the methods of making a man feel small had just gotten more clever, more polite. The sting, however, felt exactly the same. It's a lonely place to be. For most of my life, I carried a certain pride in my silence. I truly believed it was a kind of armor. When a man like Mr. Peterson threw a careless word my way, I thought my refusal to react was a sign of my own strength. I was telling myself, and maybe the world, that his smallness couldn't touch the dignity I kept safe inside me. It was my private fortress, a place where my own sense of self was untouchable, protected from the weather of other people's ignorance. That belief was a comfort for a long, long time. It made sense of the world. It allowed me to get through the day. But a fortress doesn't just keep others out. It also keeps you in. The truth that found me much later in life wasn't a lightning bolt. It was simple, quiet, and it carried a terrible weight. I came to understand that my silence wasn't a shield. It was a quiet agreement. When he called me the big guy, and I walked over with a professional smile, I was, in a way, accepting the name he gave me. I was helping him forget my real one. I thought I was protecting my dignity, but I was actually starving the part of me that deserved to be seen, the part that had a name, Harold. The real strength wouldn't have been in swallowing the hurt. It would have been in the simple, terrifying act of saying, "That's not my name." And that is the heaviest part of this memory now. It isn't just about what he did. It's about the role my silence played. It wasn't a victory to walk away with my anger neatly packed down. It was a transaction. I traded my name for his comfort, my visibility for a moment of peace. And I made that same trade countless times, telling myself it was the price of survival. But every time you let a piece of yourself go like that, it doesn't just come back. You learn to live with less. That quiet doesn't heal the wound. It just hides it in the dark, letting it become a part of you, a shadow that follows you home. I watch the world from my window a lot these days. It's a habit you pick up when you have more time behind you than ahead. I see the delivery driver pull up, leave a package on a neighbor's porch, and hurry away. I see people in the cafe across the street, ordering from a young woman whose name is pinned right there on her shirt. Yet they just point or say, "I'll get the..." It's not malice, I don't think. It's just speed. Life moves so fast now that it seems we don't have time for the small things, like a name. But when I see that flicker of a smile on a person's face, when they're seen as just a function, I recognize it. It's the feeling of becoming a shadow. When I see young men who look like my David, walking into rooms full of important people, I notice the way they hold themselves. They stand a little straighter, their voices a little more measured, as if they're proving something before they've even spoken a word. They carry a weight that isn't their own. They've learned, just as I did, that you have to be agreeable, to be excellent, to be quiet about the small hurts, just to keep your seat at the table. I see them swallowing the same words I swallowed, telling themselves it's the price of admission. They think it's strength. And it is, I suppose. But it's a lonely kind of strength. It makes you wonder what we're all carrying. Every person you pass on the street is holding something inside them. A story you'll never know. A careless word from years ago. A kindness that saved them. A name they wish someone would say. We're all walking around with these invisible histories. And I think, perhaps, the most human thing we can do is to just try to see past the function of a person. To look at the man stocking the shelves, or the woman driving the bus, and remember that they have a name. They have a whole life. That simple act of recognition, it doesn't fix the world, but it makes it a little less cold. The morning light has moved across the room, and now it rests on the floor, warming the old wood. My hands are back on this African violet, its leaves still cool to the touch. I look at it now, really look at it, and I see something different than I did a few hours ago. I saw a survivor then, a quiet thing that knew how to get by. But that's not the whole truth. This plant isn't trying to survive. It's just living. It takes the sun and the water it's given, and it grows, unashamed of the space it takes up on my windowsill. It never had to make itself smaller to be allowed to stay. It never had to swallow its own name. After 80 years, I can tell you this for certain. It's a heavy thing to carry someone else's word for you. That weight becomes a part of you, a shape you learn to live inside. It's not always the sudden blow that breaks a man. It's the slow, steady pressure of a name that isn't his own. You spend so much energy holding it up that you forget the feeling of standing straight. You forget the sound of your own name spoken with simple respect. And that, I think, is the true cost of it all. The strength you use to carry their words is the same strength you could have used to simply be yourself. This story is just one of mine, but I imagine we all have one. A time we felt unseen, or a time we might have failed to see someone else. I wonder, if you feel like sharing in the space below, what a story like that looks like for you. It doesn't have to be a big thing. Sometimes just hearing that you're not the only one who has felt a certain way is enough to make a heavy memory a little easier to carry. It helps to know we're not walking this road all by ourselves. I would be honored to listen if you feel like talking. It's a good way to be sure no story is wasted.